Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness, and the Vikings have made their first big move in free agency, agreeing to terms with former Baltimore Ravens tight end Josh Oliver on a 3-year, $21 million deal with $10.75 million fully guaranteed. Now, this is a very interesting move, but I think we can explain it in multiple parts. Let's bring in producer Dave, who we were just talking about the PFF numbers, and this guy is a mauler as a blocker. And what was really impressive is he did a lot of his damage in line, so those numbers aren't inflated. He had a PFF run blocking grade, I think it was 73.1. And listen, that's a tremendous, 74.0 as a run blocker. Tremendous numbers, Dave. I didn't quite understand this at first, but the more I thought about it, the more I like it. And we give him a lot of grief as Vikings analysts because he's just incredibly distasteful and what's the word I'm looking for? Disingenuous on social media about the Vikings. That's Peter Bukowski. He hosts Locked On Packers, and he brought up an excellent point. He thinks that the Vikings believe there's an inefficiency in the market when it comes to tight ends and tight end play, and they're trying to take advantage of it, especially with the overinflated market for wide receivers. Now, Oliver came out of college, I believe it was San Diego State, and he was a straight pass catcher. He was a guy that you want to send up the seam and you'd want to utilize as a pass catching weapon. Well, with the Ravens past couple of years, he was a blocker. He only has 26 receptions for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns in his entire career. This could be an underrated signing where the Vikings are trying to exploit the market because a Jacoby Myers is going to cost $16 million. And even the guy I've been campaigning for, DJ Chark, is probably going to cost more than what the Vikings gave Oliver. How do you feel about the signing, Dave?
I find it interesting. According to Will Rackets, he's the number 1 graded run blocking tight end in the league last year, which is good. That's part of being a tight end, is that you've got to block. I found it interesting that you said he came out as a pass catcher, and he did catch some passes last year, averaging over 10 yards a catch. But the fact that we now have 2 starting tight ends, obviously Hawkinson is tight end 1, he'll be tight end 2 in the primary blocking tight end. But how many 12 formations are we going to see? I know the Vikings want to improve their run game, but are we going back to the Zimmer offense again?
I don't think so. I think we're going to be going to a little bit more of a hybrid of what the Zimmer offense was, but with Kevin O'Connell flair. Because the one thing about TJ Hawkinson is you don't have to position him as only an inline guy. He is not only going to be a blocker. He's a guy you can flex out as a wide receiver. You can put him in the slot. And the Vikings did a lot of those things with him. So having a guy who you can just line up inline or even split out, you can utilize 12 personnel, but doesn't necessarily mean you have to just have 2 inline tight ends. You could have both of those guys line up in the slot, and you have KJ Osborne and Justin Jefferson lining up on the outside. It's not quite as simple. You can be multiple with these players, and I think that creates an extra dimension. Now, the one interesting thing is if you play with a lot of 12 personnel, you're going to see a lot less nickel packages. You're going to see a lot more base defense. And that's when your play action, hey, I have linebackers across from TJ Hawkinson. Hey, let's take advantage of that. Those are the kinds of things that you can do by having 12 personnel. And 12 personnel was utilized a lot by the Chiefs, 49ers, and even the Eagles this past year. Like 12 personnel it creates mismatches when you have tight ends who can exploit them. And I think this is the direction that Kwesi wants to go by trying to understand, hey, this is what the market is. This is what's going on. And let's try to find edges in the marketplace. Now, it's not going to be an edge for very long. But right now, it seems to be. And you saw what the Vikings did with TJ Hawkinson. They swapped a second and a third round pick for 2 fourth-round picks and Hawkinson. Travis Kelce has been the ultimate cheat code for years. George Kittle just dominates defenses. If you have a tight end that can do those kinds of things, you're in itself creating a an exploitation on offense that other teams just can't handle. What are you going to do? Put a cornerback on him full time? Well, then all the Vikings are going to do is they're just going to run right at Hockenson, and Hawkinson's going to be able to maul the corner. So the more I think about it and the more I look into it, the more I like it. I'm very interested to see what this means for CJ Ham. Are they going to still keep him? Or are they going to choose to move on? This probably also means Johnny Munt is gone. And Munt was not very good last year. I think they're going to want to prioritize keeping Nick Muse over Johnny Munt because he was a homegrown guy and he is a super freak athlete. And something I opined about on Twitter before we started recording, Dave, it felt weird that they were taking this much money and putting it into the tight end position when it's one of the deepest tight end classes in recent memory, potentially ever. But tight ends historically take 3 to 4 years to develop. And in 3 years, we could be talking about Josh Oliver as being a steal at $7 million average annual value.
Very, very well could. Absolutely. And it does take that long. I mean, the old saying goes, you're drafting a tight end for the next team because it takes getting through that first contract before it all clicks and they're good.
Yeah. And I will leave everybody with this. This is a tweet from Arif Hassan. He said he just got this from an NFL analyst who regularly consults with NFL teams. He says that he's not sure he agrees on the valuation that this gentleman had, because PFF had Oliver with a $3.5 million average annual valuation. So let's be honest. Just because the contract says $21 million, it can be fudged a little bit. We'll know more when the details are out. But this analyst told Arif, this looks gross on paper, but Oliver was a badass last year, as his PFF grades indicated as far as blocking. I had him valued at $13.5 million per year. Vikings going more 12 next year and zigging on a zagging wide receiver market post-Thielen is pretty nice. So this kind of goes into that market inefficiency where wide receiver twos are getting paid substantially more money than they're probably worth. Jacoby Myers getting $16 million. I mean, Adam Thielen was slated to cost $20 million on the cap this year. Like, that's a lot for a second wide receiver option. And TJ Hockenson is likely going to be a 14 or 15 average annual value as a top tier tight end. And a second tight end being at that 7 million mark, maybe we are really exploiting an inefficiency.
Let's hope so. I think it could be wonderful.
Let's absolutely hope so. This has been another short of the Real Forno Show, talking about in real time the signing of tight end Josh Oliver. Please like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow this brand new YouTube channel that Dave and I are building from the ground up. There's going to be a lot more coming. Anytime there's breaking news with what our jobs are in this media sphere, we're going to be able to go live and talk about it immediately. Enjoy the rest of your day, and SKOL Vikings.
But before we go, there's another thing that two very good blocking and pass catching tight ends are good for.
What is that, Dave?
Being security blankets for young quarterbacks.
Ooh, that's a good point. Let's hope the Vikings choose to go. And if you have not seen, I did write an article for Vikings Wire earlier on Monday talking about how they should make a trade for quarterback Matt Corral from the Carolina Panthers. Take care and SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings! Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!